Hi, my name is Adi Annette, and this is my little faith corner of the internet. And for this video, I'll be going through Exodus chapters 5 through 12. And honestly, this week was a little rough for me. It was an emotional roller coaster. I feel like I've been trying to find some balance with being obedient and then just reading the right things in certain situations that I've been in. Um, just financially trying to support myself and not being at work right now has just kind of like reality set in. I was kind of like in this honeymoon phase. Excuse me. I was in the honeymoon phase where I was like, yes, I'm retired and I'm home and I'm just getting all these things done. And then this week I was like, oh, we have bills. Like I have savings, but I was like, okay, and where's the rest of it gonna come from? So I was able to lock something down, it's still part time, so I can have the time to work on my projects and focus on my purpose and everything. But I think there was just some things like that I was going through where I was like struggling with doubt at times. So I think just getting through this week, it's been an emotional roller coaster. But that's okay because that's the reason that, I'm trying to read my Bible every day and stay focused on God, not stressing myself out. He's got a plan. I know that I'm being obedient, so there's nothing for me to be concerned about. As long as I'm being obedient, we're good. So, yes. But let's get into it. I'm going to start with chapter 5. So, in chapter 5, we see that Pharaoh continues to bring more trouble to Egypt ever since Moses came to him and told him that God told Moses, obviously, to tell Pharaoh, sorry, that's like a lot, that he needs to let his people go. Pharaoh then told Moses that he does not believe in God or know who God is, and he will not be doing any of that. He said, no thanks. Back to business, moving on. And then Moses, by the end of the chapter, is going to God and he's like, why did you send me? And honestly, I felt that. Honestly, when God called me to leave my very cushy corporate job, I was confused because, and even in previous years when He was showing me what my purpose was going to be, I knew that I would eventually have to give up being a paralegal. But still, I think I was just going back and forth with myself and back and forth with God because I'm like, why me? So I feel like when Moses was just getting tired. I mean, he was 88 years old. 88 years old doing all this. I feel like when he was going to God and said, "Why did you send me?" I just felt that because God will literally just start asking you to do these outrageous things that are so out of your comfort zone. You're like, "Babe, I thought we were on the same page." You're like not listening. As I'm now retired, I am grateful that God called me to leave and just be in the space that I'm in because I'm taking it day by day, but I am lighter. But some days I still ask him, why me? Like, I don't know when things are going to start to settle in, but the way that I saw Moses continuously checking in with God, like, why me? What are we doing? Why? I just couldn't help but relate because I think now that I'm fully out uh, from being a paralegal, I'm like, oh, okay, so we're embracing this purpose. Awesome. But still, I feel like I just keep asking him, why me? I think this also comes from the fact that I'm not seeing the success that I thought I would once I left. And for context, am a very impatient person. Am I working on it? No. Do I say I want to be more patient? Yeah, but I'm not like serious. Like, I'm just not going to be serious about being patient because I feel like I just waited so long for things in my life that I'm like, okay, let's go. But yeah, because I'm not saying that immediate success. I'm like, oh, am I doing something wrong? Did I listen to God correctly? I think it's just like all these, like, I'm going down this negative rabbit hole. And I feel like when Moses was continuing to go back and forth with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh wasn't just believing what Moses was saying and doing what God was asking him to do, letting his people go. I think Moses was also just like, okay, this isn't working. Like, why are we going back and forth with this man? And now let's move on to chapter 6. We see that Moses is reminding the Israelites of who God is in the promises that he's made to them. And I personally, I keep showing up even though I'm not seeing the movement that I want, um, because I'm still hanging on to the promises that God made me. And I also understand Moses when he's thinking out loud and to God, just asking him, what if they don't listen to me? Because I feel like I also struggle with that insecurity where what are people going to think about the way that I sound, the way that I articulate myself? What if people don't listen to me? And I feel like I just also have that same battle where, the Israelites were kind of on the fence when Moses would speak to them about, God's promises and then having to remind them of his promises to them, but then also going back and forth with Pharaoh. I mean, like, no one was listening to him, but God kept telling him, just do what I'm telling you. But it is a good reminder that God does stay true to his promises, and we just have to keep going to, just see all of the great things that he has for us. It's not going to be like that in between. It's not going to be pretty. And there will be some trouble and lots of it. I mean, sometimes maybe not. And, if that's not you, I love that. But yeah, I feel like we just have to stay true to what we know he's told us and promised us and just keep going because in the end, it will be worth it. But it just, that middle part, it lasts forever and it sucks every day. But just being obedient, I think like I keep it top of mind. So I'm like, just keep going. Literally, just keep swimming. Okay, so next I will be summarizing a little bit and just going through I'll be clumping chapters 7 through 11 because these chapters highlight the 10 plagues. I'll list them somewhere on the screen for you guys. I don't want to just go on and on about the plagues. Um, but yes, God sent 10 plagues. When I was reading through, I was like, are you joking? And I mean, let me tell you right now, do I struggle with doubt? Yes. I worry, but it's just human. You know what I mean? And I still choose to follow God even though I struggle with some of those negative feelings because I do believe in God and I do fear God. I'm confused as to why Pharaoh let like let all of this happen because of this pride and not believing in God. And like I really just couldn't understand the fact that you see all of these um you know all these things, all these bad things happening, and that God is like, Moses performing all of these miracles, all these plagues, and you see that and it's happening to your people and you are continuing to let it happen. I, I feel like I just couldn't wrap my head around it because I'm like, how could you not see God in it? It was just the most confusing thing. Genuinely. I don't, but let's get into it. Now, this is going to be my understanding and interpretation. I feel like the plagues represented spiritual resistance because we see that the Pharaoh he did not want to follow God's orders, even though he had more than enough signs to see that it was God and no one else. Pharaoh is actively, he's just in direct opposition of God's will. And I feel like when I was reading through the plagues, you could just see, I could just notice that in Pharaoh, just he was just looking for any reason to go against what God was saying and asking him to do. For Moses, I feel like the spiritual resistance shows up when he's initially hesitant and questioning his own authority and credibility. And he does struggle with that throughout Exodus, as we see. And other times we see that he's just resisting his own call to lead. I could not relate to Pharaoh because although that sometimes I struggle to, I feel like believe, well, not believe, but I feel like see God's plan for me, I still believe him. I think it's just my ability to get through those hard days. He is not going to have to send 10 plagues to get me to believe him. Uh, miss me. Like, just the threat. No. One thing I loved while I was reading chapters 7 through 11 was the fact that Moses kept showing up. Although he was going through these internal insecurities and even going to God and continuing to ask him, why me? God or Moses kept showing up. I think that was one of the beautiful things because we see him get more and more confident. When, I mean, God sent 10 plagues and he sent Moses and Aaron, but I definitely just want to highlight Moses to perform these miracles, these plagues, right? And I feel like one of the things that definitely stood out was the fact that Moses was getting more and more confident with each plague that God asked him to perform. And I was honestly really proud of Moses because I'm like, dude, you did that. Like, even though nobody was listening to him, I think his authority, it was just growing and growing, but he was stepping into his purpose and actually fulfilling what God wanted him to do. And I feel like that was like the main thing that I try to stick to, like I mentioned, is just being obedient. I don't want to do half of the things that God is asking me to do. And, like with Moses, he didn't tell Moses it was going to be a nice, smooth ride. And same with me. I knew and know all the things that are going to come with fulfilling God's purpose and all the things that the enemy is going to try to do to, knock me down and get me off course. But Moses would get right back up and do what God said. He was like, I don't want to do this for the seventh time, but I gotta go. God said I have to, so I'm gonna. What God has planned for me is going to require me showing up every day consistently, whether I want to or not. I have to put my feelings aside and be obedient. And I I love that God is using Exodus to remind me to stay obedient. So I'm trying to find a balance with the nerves and the hesitations. But although every day, I try to just tackle every day's problems, I feel like I'm getting more and more confident. And Moses is he's just such a great role model for me right now. And I love that I just have evidence of someone else being insecure in some of the same areas that I'm insecure in. Sometimes it's really easy for me to go down this rabbit hole of negative thoughts. But then at the end of the day, like I said in my last video, God chose Moses because he believed he could do it. He specifically chose Moses to complete that task. And he does the same thing with me. So why am I walking around like I don't have all the resources to be successful? obviously people are going to try to um, make me feel small, and the devil is definitely going to use other people and my insecurities to um, make me feel like I'm not worthy of fulfilling God's purpose. But I already know that the devil's going to try to do that. So as long as I keep God's promises at the top of my mind and that I am more than capable, I'm going to be okay. So I feel like chapters 7 through 11 just gave me a much better perspective on my current season. Okay, and now let's go to chapter 12. So in chapter 12, we see that God gave Moses instructions for the Passover meal to, reiterate to the Israelites and their next steps. And here, what I noticed was that this was like their preparation. So he was like preparing them to move because we see that God was also going to send the destroyer. And I don't know why I just did quotes. He was going to send the destroyer to kill um, the firstborns in these households. And he told the Israelites to mark their door frames with blood. That way, the destroyer would go past their house. And God said that there would be a lot of cries that night. They didn't know what night this was going to happen, but he was essentially preparing them to move because the Pharaoh was then going to kick the Israelites out. This was also preparing the Israelites to be spiritually alert. I think that God is always looking for me to be spiritually alert because you have to understand where certain things are going to come from, and I have to be ready to move at any time. Like, he could essentially give you a time frame, but at the same time, like when God says go, you have to go. There's no, oh, and it, go. So I think that these chapters were definitely a roller coaster and interesting to read because I feel like there was so much that I didn't even have knowledge of. In previous years, when I read Exodus, I think it was just chapter specific. Like if I wanted to read a specific verse and I maybe just wanted like context of a chapter, but I feel like even with the plagues, there was so much that I had no idea. And honestly, I didn't know that there were 10 plagues. And maybe some of you knew that. I had no idea. No clue. And I also didn't know that um it was Moses and Aaron performing um these plagues, miracles and stuff. And I also found that interesting. Um but I love that even with Moses' brother by his side, he was still able to just be fully confident and didn't necessarily lean on Aaron like that. So, yeah, it- these few chapters were definitely interesting. And I don't know, I kind of had some fun reading them in a way because I feel like reading them as an adult, I just have, um, obviously, like my understanding is better. Like as a kid, there's only so much you can grasp, and then they shorten a lot. So, yeah, it was just really interesting, but definitely I had a wave of emotions. But yes, thank you for tuning in this week, and I hope that you like, share, and subscribe. Please leave comments below. I want to talk to you guys. Just let me know if you're also in this season. Let me know if you have any questions or something I said maybe you didn't understand. So I just want to chat with you guys. And yes, I hope that you tune in next week, and I will be going through some more chapters that I read in Exodus.